All right. We live. We live. It's Miss Peaches with straight transparency, and y'all know what it is. 9 p.m. your time every Friday night, Eastern time. That is, because my time is 7 p.m. right now. But we about to get into the conversation of these intergenerational gaps and the social issues that surround them. And I have a guest on tonight, Miss Sydney London, who I have personally mentored me during my campaign trail. Basically, as a mother, she told me not to give up, not to worry about what people say, and keep your voice. Don't let people shape your voice because everybody got something to say. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and slide over to her so that she can go ahead and introduce herself. And then we're going to get into this, y'all.
All right. Hey, everybody. How are you? Welcome. This is an honor for me to be here. I was a little surprised when Miss Peaches asked me, but I definitely could not say no, because I believe in her. I believe in what she does. I know she has greatness in her, and destiny is calling her. And so tonight she asked me to speak on this because I posted a few things on Facebook that I had gotten triggered about, and so she called me, and I said, well, that was one of my triggers, the communication gap between generations in our community as it relates to social issues, political issues, community issues. And I just wanted to, kind of speak on that a little bit. But to tell you again, Sydney London Kinsler is my name. I'm sorry, I got my name messed up. Sydney Kinsler London is the name. I just formed an LLC called Film Renaissance, and it just kind of fell in my spirit. And that name, Film Renaissance, well, of course, film is woman in Renaissance. But I wanted to know exactly what that meant. So when I looked it up, it said a woman who is interested in and knows a lot about many things. And I have to say that is me. It's not a brag or a boast. It is who I am because I'm curious. And so from that, I said, oh, man, so that all the puzzles of my pieces of my puzzle of my life fell in place. That's what I do. I talk about a lot of stuff. I talk about a lot of things. You can come and ask me about some stuff, and if I can't tell you about it, I can tell you where to go. And so that is what I want to share with the world. And I call it cat curiosity because the people say, well, the curiosity killed the cat. No, curiosity made the cat smart. That's why cats are like they are. And I'm sometimes called the cat lady because I do love cats and I have them. But it's a thirst for knowledge, and then for me, the ability to share that knowledge with other people. So that's what Film Renaissance is. It's female centric to help women discover all the bits and pieces of their lives and help it make sense and guide somebody on their way. I don't want to call myself a coach. I call myself an influencer in the essence of being a guide. Let me guide you down this path. I've been here for a minute. I bumped my head many times, and so maybe I can help teach you some stuff. And this whole thing about the communication gap uh, really triggered me a lot because respect is due on both sides. And I guess one of the things that triggers me is when and it has happened to me, so I'm sure it's happened to other people in my generation, where we've been told, you're too old, you don't know what you're talking about, you're stuck in the Stone Age, you're basically useless, get out of the way. And I was like, hold up, wait a minute now. There's a thing called knowledge and there's a thing called wisdom. They work together. You can't have one without the other. And you can have knowledge without wisdom. Let me back up. You can have knowledge without wisdom, which is absolutely useless and can get you in a world of trouble. Turns you into a zealot because you'll go running out in your zeal and screw up a whole lot of things. But from that, what I did is as I'm thinking about tonight, I came up with what I call a 3-layer understanding cake. There are 3 layers to this cake. The first one is knowledge. Knowledge is obtained through teaching, learning, reading, making mistakes, and correcting those mistakes. And that's your top layer. And that's where it is. Knowledge is right there. You can get a whole lot of knowledge, but is it seasoned? Is it blended? Does it blend well with other facets of your life or other people's lives? Layer 2 would be forgiveness. Now that one came kind of was a surprise to me, but forgiveness. And not just forgiveness for other people, but also forgiveness for yourself. Because sometimes we can be our world's worst critic. The shoulda, coulda, woulda. You should have been smarter. You knew better. And you end up being stagnant and not growing and not moving. And as far as forgiveness for other people, I I see comments and I hear people say, "How could they forgive them? That's just crazy. How can you forgive somebody who did this or that to you?" Forgiveness is never about the other person. Forgiveness is about you. Because if you can't forgive, then you are in bondage. Because you are stuck in an emotional and spiritual place of rage and anger and hurt and pain. And you keep reliving that thing that hurt you and you can't move forward. So that's why forgiveness is absolutely important to be able to communicate with other people. And also, to be able to really communicate with yourself. All right. And then the last one is wisdom. Now, wisdom is not conferred by age. There are people in my generation who think that just because they're 66, whatever, that they are wise and nobody should confront them and nobody should dispute with them. And that's not true. Now, I'll admit, I'm set in my ways, but I've been that way all my life. So it has nothing to do with age. But wisdom is not conferred by age. Wisdom is something that you really have to make a decision that you want. I mean, even in the Bible, what did Solomon, God told Solomon, what is it that you want above all other things? And Solomon said, wisdom, because I need to know how to guide your people. So wisdom is something that you actually have to seek. It's not coming to you automatically. It's not coming to you, if you live longer. And then wisdom is obtained through life experience, self-reflection, observation of self. Now, self-reflection and observation of self are not the same thing. Self-reflection means you just sit for a while, you get with yourself, and you talk with yourself, and you hash out things with yourself. Observation of self is you sit back for a minute and say, okay, wait, hold up. Why did you say what you said? Why did you do that thing that is out of character or off kilter for you? What was your motivation behind that? Okay. Observation of self and others. Accountability. You got to own your stuff. If you messed up, you messed up. And I have a whole thing about what was done, and what wasn't. And then you got to move on. So be accountable, take full responsibility for whatever your portion of that thing is. Mm-hmm. Self-forgiveness, we already talked about that. And a sense of humor. You got to be able to laugh at yourself. Now, I will admit, that was hard for me for a long time. I took myself so seriously. I could not laugh at myself. I didn't take jokes easily. And right. My kids can attest to that. But you got to have a sense of humor, because the bottom line is the universe will not crack and life will go on. All right. And wisdom actually is the pinnacle of this understanding cake that is the foundation of empathy and compassion, which are the secrets to effective communication. Empathy and compassion. If you can't empathize, not sympathize, but if you can't empathize with someone's situation and have compassion for it, although you may not live that thing, you may not have lived that thing, but if you can't do that, you really can't communicate with them because there is no understanding. And all these three things right here they culminate in understanding. And the word says, in all of your getting, get understanding. Now, some people mistake that for knowledge. Some people mistake that for wisdom. It's all of it. And when you get that, then you can move forward. And so that's the thing that I try to stress when I'm speaking to younger people. Just hear me. Take a moment and just listen to me. Same thing with older people. You just can't shut them down. Just listen. And sometimes it's hard to listen when you're fixed in your position. And I've been guilty of that. And in fact, the other day I made a comment because there's a thing about Black parents telling their children at 18, you have to leave home. I didn't grow up. I heard it before and I was like, no, we don't. We don't do that. But evidently we do. It wasn't done with me. I didn't tell my kids they had to get out at 18. And so I made a comment about that. I was like, that's just foolishness. I mean, who does that? Then I thought about it, I said, no, but that's somebody's reality. So I went back and I deleted the comment. And I said I deleted the comment because after I reflected on it, that's somebody's reality. It's not mine. but that doesn't mean that my reality is true for everybody else. So that's what I mean too about being accountable for your foolishness and take responsibility. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. Admit it. You move on. But you got to be able to listen.
Right.
And so there we are.
So that was a beautiful introduction, and thank you for breaking it down because we're gonna dive into all that.
Okay.
So, and when we talk about wisdom, I always say that I don't call my elders seniors. I call them my wisdom because wisdom also teaches us the difference between right and wrong. As a matter of fact, the Bible says wisdom was here first. She was here first. And God made this world, and it was wisdom. So when we have to think about when we're talking to our elders, when it comes to these intergenerational gaps, the reason why we have these social issues are surrounding that is because a lot of children growing up today, which we call millennials, and then they got this next generation that's coming as well, is because they feel like it's just like being it's just like being in your own home with your own kids. Your kids feel like you don't know nothing, like you ain't grew up, like you ain't been through nothing, like I didn't have y'all, like I didn't raise y'all. I went through something to get where I'm at today.
Exactly.
I had experiences to get where I'm at today. I had to use a lot of wisdom in teaching you all and in raising you all in order for you guys to get where you at today.
Well, one of the things I like to say about that is, I have a daughter who used to always say, well, I'm a grown woman. I'm a grown woman. That's okay. I agree with you, but I'm a grown ass woman, and there is a difference because you gotta go where I've been. You will never be as old or as grown as I am because you got to get there first.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt you, but
no, it's okay because true, that's where I was going. You got to get where I'm at to know what I've been through, to know what I've gone through. Don't think that you could just step out the house, even at the age of 18, and think that you know it all because you don't. Right. Like I tell my boys, I didn't raise y'all in the streets.
Right.
So y'all picking it up from somewhere. But what I can tell y'all is if y'all gonna be out there, use some wisdom. Know the difference between right and wrong decisions that you're gonna make while you're out there. If you hang around people who can influence your change and it's a negative change, you might want to use some wisdom and get from around them. Okay. But if you're around folks who can influence your change and it's a positive change, then take what you need from them. Get what you need from them, learn from them, and then keep pushing, keep going. Because as long as we all live, we ain't gonna never know it all.
Nope.
We think we are, but we ain't gonna never know it all. But around in these social issues, I saw a post one time about the singers, Dionne Warwick and Patti LaBelle and all of them. And then they tried to compare these powerful women with Beyonce. And I told them, I said, there's no comparison. What are you talking about?
Not at all. Because
she's younger and because she draws more people. She drawing people for her time. They drew people for their time. And when you're elder and when you're older, you have to sometimes what I say is you have to give that torch over. That means you have got to teach, and you've got to teach with some sense, with some education, with some knowledge. You can't teach somebody about having wisdom and you ain't got none yourself. You can't teach your children something and you don't know it yourself. That's why I always say, that's why the song say experience is a good teacher. When you got the experience, you can actually teach somebody something based off your experience. But when you go to an elder, they may not have been through what you've been through, but I guarantee you they can give you wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Turn your mic down on that one.
And not turn it off.
When an elder doesn't know about something because they haven't been through the experience, because you ain't gonna go through everything while you living. It's just some things you probably ain't gonna touch. You probably ain't never knew what it was like to be hungry. You probably never knew what it was like to go through domestic violence. You probably never knew what it was like to be sexually molested, raped, or incest in the family. You probably never knew all that. But I can guarantee you, wisdom would kick in. They'll be able to give you wisdom that you can carry. Yeah. So I also knock that too. I don't wish for children or these teenagers or these young in their early 20s and stuff like that to say that they know it all. Like them elders can't teach us nothing. They don't know what we're going through today. No, but that doesn't mean they don't have the wisdom to give to you.
Right. And that's the thing. Because I have 5 children, four daughters and 1 son. And my daughters used to say, "Oh, you just think, my son, you think he's so goody two shoes." I said, "No, because I'm sure he's doing some things that I would not approve of. But the thing is, when I speak, he listens. Now, whether he actually takes the advice and does it, that's on him. But at least he will listen." I said, "But see, with y'all, when I talk, y'all talk. If I say A, you say B. Before I can get A out of my mouth, you say B. I'm like, oh, can we just do that?" And that's the thing that kind of cripples us, right? Is crippling us right now, I think, in the community. Everybody has a point they want to defend. Everybody wants to be right.
Mm-hmm.
And no, you understand that the common goal here is for all of us to survive and thrive.
Right.
There's enough for everybody. And I'm going to use the Ice Cube situation.
Okay.
Because I spoke about that when it happened. And immediately I said, no. And this is not downing this man. This is just a simple fact of what he did. And it could have been a moment for him. I don't know, because I don't know him. He got with some people and wrote this contract for Black America. And he decided that he wanted to use it basically to open some doors. Open doors for him. And if somebody else can walk through, then so be it. And then it was put out that he had approached the Democrats who turned him down, but the Republicans said yes. And a whole lot of people jumped on the bandwagon. See what he did? It took courage to do what he did. And he went over and talked to those people. And I immediately said, no, he did a self-serving act. And people tell me, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. He did it for the Black people. I'm like, no, he did not, because there's a different way to do it. And I said, the thing about it, the circles he runs in, if nobody else could do it, people like him, collaboration is the key. He could have gotten with people, his peers, and we can collaborate and we can get some of these things done. Because when I read the contract, the thing is, a lot of it can be grassroots done or done collaboration with people with money and power on this end, not in politics, but on his end. Because some of them would require constitutional amendments, which of course is not going to happen. Some of them would require writing new laws. Again, not happening. And then somebody said, oh, he went out and got it signed. I said, but who signed it? I need to know who signed it. Who were the power brokers that signed this thing and actually said that this is going to happen? I said, that's a bait and switch. If nothing else, it's a bait and switch. Lo and behold, a couple of days ago, an article comes up where truth is Kamala Harris approached him, gave him a call, invited him to a round table with some other people, like-minded people. He said, no, don't want to do that. My contract shouldn't be shared like that. Right back to what I said, self-serving. What do you mean? So this is about you. You want to be seen. You want the glory. So he turned her down because he wanted a one-on-one. And because she wouldn't give him a one-on-one, then this other thing with the Republicans, which I don't even know how that went, because however that went. But my point is, we've got to understand collaboration. And collaboration says, I don't necessarily have to like you, but we have a common goal. If we can grab that, and Marie, you've heard, I'm sorry to call you Marie, but you've heard
no, Marie is fine. It's my name.
You've heard me say this many times. Collaboration, leverage, and legacy. And as a community, if we could grab that and wallow in it, immerse ourselves in that, we're unstoppable. We are already fierce people. We just need to understand it. And this whole thing about going out to, people talking about the white savior and all this kind of stuff. Whatever white people do, they do. And I've said that before. The white man is the white man. He's going to be the white man. There's nothing going to change that. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We have enough resources, expertise, financial resources in our community that we never have to set foot outside of the community to do what needs to be done. It was done when I was a child in segregation. Are you serious? I'm talking about doing segregation when you could not go certain places. You couldn't go, you couldn't even try on clothes. And we were still self-sufficient and managed to take care of our communities. And you're telling me now, with all the resources, all the doors that have been opened by old people like me, anyway, and then you tell me you can't get it done? So you need a white man to sign off on it because you need Trump or you need Biden or you need somebody? That's crazy. That is crazy to me. We have the resources. If we could just sit down with each other, get past being the chief, being Indian, or be a follower. You don't have to be the leader, and understand we have a common goal. And the common goal is that we have generational prosperity, wealth, and livelihood that our children's children's children live. I'm reading a book I read, June Jordan. I'm not to cut you off. June Jordan. June Jordan was a poet, and saw something on TV where a lady quoted her, and I looked her up and never heard of her before. But she wrote a book called "We Did Not Die," meaning Black folks. Out of all that we've been through, we did not die. But she talks about the 2000 election, the stolen election is what she calls it in there. And I'm reading this, and I'm reading what Toni Morrison is saying about the percentage of Black people who voted, and how the strategy was to increase that for the next election for 2004. And I'm like, oh my God, we're 20 years later in the same situation. If you read that excerpt, it's called where did I write it down? Hold on. Oh, The Invisible People. You know, Richard Wright wrote a book called The Invisible Man. She said we've gone from the invisible man to the invisible people. And we're talking about 20 years ago. She was talking about the same stuff we're living today. Nothing has changed. They were so optimistic back then that the community would get together, and we would never let that happen to us again. What happened politically then? And here we are in 2020, and what? It's just as crazy, if not crazier. And our very people don't really understand, although, okay, God is always in control, always. However, there's some responsibility that we bear in making sure things go the way they're supposed to go. And the thought that you would say as a Black person in America, I'm not voting, or I'm voting for Trump, which basically is one and the same, and justify it and rationalize it with some craziness about taxes that have nothing to do with you. Because what they're talking about when they're talking about taxes is not for us. They're not talking about our income taxes. They're talking about their capital gains taxes or their business taxes and all the loopholes they use. They are not talking about us.
That's correct.
Right. And you talk the crazy talk. You talk about HBCUs. Oh, he did this for Black colleges. And yeah, but read the fine print. Yes, he made it so they didn't have to come back every year. However, he gave with one hand and took with the other. You need to read, you need to research. So I'm just saying we have got to find a way to get past ourselves. And I don't even know what that answer is. I really don't. But unless we do it, our survival is really at stake here in this country. I don't know about anywhere else in the rest of the world, but in this country, our survival is on the line, because I can't imagine 4 more years of Trump with the policies that they've already put out, and still, and trust me, as I speak, I'm sure they're working on something else that's going to be devastating to us. I mean, like I said, I can't breathe. I mean, that's literally how I see us. We're suffocating here. And I don't think it's going to get any better if this man is back in office. And I'm going off on a political bent, but because it's more than just Trump. It's not just Trump, but he's just the figurehead for that. Because this whole thing that's happening has been percolating for years. He just happened to help it boil to the surface. And he's the thing you can point at and say Trump, but it's really more than Trump, because Trump is really not it's the people behind the scenes that's pulling the strings. Yeah.
That's right. And that's why it's so important to understand about these
Thank you, Chris.
gaps and intergenerational with our intergenerational legacy. because it can be something powerful if the young would get with the wisdom and learn something. We know that our new millennials, they creating new ideas. They're gonna have new things that flow. They got new ways of doing things. Of course, we can't do things the same way we did them back then, but you see a recurring event of the same thing that happened back then is still happening now. And the solution is, what are we gonna do? I don't even involve myself in conversations anymore that's talking about that where you complaining and you saying that this is happening and that is happening. I'm in the field. I'm in the field in Colorado too, taking the heat.
Exactly.
I'm getting told off by white folks. I'm getting told I need to take my black self back to Florida. I'm in the heat trying to make change, and they're gonna have to come with it because again, God is in control. Yes, He is. God is always in control. But if you don't take responsibility for the now, see, people don't look at it. Maybe, God warned us about a lot of things in the Bible. He even told us to get ready. He even told us that Babylon gonna be over soon. He told us to go prepare ourselves, and he told us to go start making our own crops, our own food, building our own homes and stuff like that. God said all that. So if He said all that, we got a responsibility to get to work and start to doing what's supposed to be doing. I often say, if you don't move, God can't move. So why are we sitting here blaming the white man for everything? When you say the white man gonna be the white man, he doing. It's just like we say the enemy, the devil doing what he's supposed to be doing. We need to get on our job.
Not take vacations.
He ain't gonna take vacation
Nope.
because he means to stir up. He's here to kill, steal, and destroy. And that's what he's trying to do to black people everywhere. Destroy, because we have fell into those social determinants where they say we lazy, so we lazy. Where they say we angry and we violent, so we be angry and violent. Where they say that we less than and we ain't gonna never be on top. They told me that on my campaign trail. You know how I took it on that campaign trail. From those I figured would be my wisdom.
Right.
People I went to for help.
Yep.
And turned me around and said, you need to sit your little young self down because you ain't ready. You ain't learned nothing. But when I opened my mouth, they found that God was all in it the entire time. See, I may not have knew what to say, but God knew what to say at the right time. So when we talk about those intergenerational gaps, young folks need to understand that you didn't get here by yourself. You didn't no bird, no stork drop you in and you hatched in front of somebody though. It just magically knew what was going on.
Exactly.
You had to see your parents go through something. You had to see people around you go through something in order to learn something. Now when we teach, we got to teach right. We can't teach wrong. That's why our children so stirred up now, and they don't have no respect for their elders and anybody out there. And I don't care who it is. Right. If you ain't checking your children at the door when they get nasty and smart with elders, please don't bring them around me, because I'm going to check them. Right. Respect is due to everybody. Yes. And I don't care if an elder is wrong. You got to respect that elder. Because although you feel like they're wrong, they might be telling you something that could save you, that you need to know.
And see, and I call that positional respect. And that's something I had to go through again. I use my children all the time as examples.
Say that again. What you called it?
I use my children as examples all the time, in some of these things about, like you're talking about respect. What did you just say? You just said something that triggered. Oh my God, I just lost my thought.
I was talking about the elders and the respect that we give to, even if they're wrong.
Right, positional respect.
Positional respect, okay.
Now, when my kids were little, I told them this. There's absolutely no law in the universe that says you will always love me. However, you will always respect me. Now, that you do, because I am your mother. Out of everything else, I'm your mother. End the conversation. I took them to the Bible and I showed them the scripture. The Bible says, if you want a long, prosperous life, you must honor me. Period. It didn't say on Wednesday, Sunday, if you act right, talk right, that's it. Now, there's also the scripture where parents cannot make their children, you don't do anything to make your children angry. You don't
Don't
provoke your
provoke
children.
them to anger. That's in
However,
James.
right. However, my thing is positional authority. And as my children have gotten older, and of course, like I say with the daughters, I'm a grown woman, I'm in this, that, and the other, but I'm still your mama. Now that drives them
Mhm.
crazy when I say that. I say I'm your mama till you die, not till I die, till you die. I said, and that position right there has there is respect due to the position. So you must honor that. Even if you don't like what I say, you might not like me today. The fact is, there is a positional respect that has to be given. And by the same token, I'm gonna flip it to young people. Same thing with older people with young people. And Mona Lisa has said, that I'm cool with a lot of generations, but that's simply because I'm a full believer in you treat everybody with dignity and respect. Period. In the conversation, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. So when it comes to young people, I don't have an issue with giving you respect. None. Because I'm not worried about the fact that you might be 20 or 30 or whatever the case may be. The fact is you're a human being. So I'm gonna give you the respect that a human being is due. And
Right.
I know that there are older people who don't do that because they do like what you said happened to you. Go somewhere and sit down. You don't know anything. You ain't lived long enough and all that kind of stuff. And that's a detriment as well, because everybody can learn from somebody and anybody, everybody. There are
Mm-hmm.
20 somethings who have more wisdom than a 60-year-old. I had
Mm-hmm.
this whole thing about being grown. And I know when my daughter turned 18, one of her nieces I said something she couldn't do. And so she was like, but Taylor's grown. I said, no, 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 no. Taylor's 18. There's a difference.
There's a difference.
And there's a difference. And there's also a difference between an adult and a grown-up.
That's
The
right.
law says that you are an adult at 18. That's legally you are an adult. However, grown means that you've lived some stuff. You've been through some stuff and you've gained some wisdom. Grown, keyword growth. So you can be a 60-year-old an adult, a 60-year-old adult who's still a child. You can be a 20-year-old and be a grown-up. But there's a term that one of my daughters coined. She calls them chadults. I'm still
Shadow.
a adults. I'm a child, an adult. I don't know what I want to be today. I think I want to be an adult today, but I think I'm going to be a child too. So I'm a chadult. And so that's what she calls her. She is a 19-year-old, her chadult. And so I love that term because, and that, my youngest is 23, and I love her all my heart. She's a hard worker. She's smart, but she's a chadult. Because,
Shadow. All right.
right, because she really is not prepared for the world. And, she's not ready to go out there. She talks about it, but she's not ready. So this is the case. So when you come at me talking about you're grown, that I might take that with a grain of salt, regardless of your age. Because if your behavior is such that shows no growth, no personal growth, then you might not be a grown up.
Right. And that's good. That's good. I like that you don't,
Right.
because nowadays children are not getting the chance to grow up and be children.
Yeah.
They're and here's where the gap comes into place. That's why I say our wisdom can teach. And when I say wisdom to everybody that's on here, I mean our elders. I call elders wisdom because, again, our elders are the ones who taught us the difference between right and wrong. They the ones took them switches off that tree, or either they told you range around here and get this here belt right here. Dip,
Yeah.
they will whip your behind into shape.
Yes.
But the reason why I say that is because our children go to school every single day. Our children living hard lives right now. They going to school virtually.
That is true.
Most of our children don't even most of our children are into computers or games or gaming as they call it already.
Right.
So I feel like this. When COVID hit, America couldn't have done no more injustice than saying school need to be online. And I know don't nobody want to go back to school. I know some people gonna disagree with this, but look at it this way. If our children already love to be on computers when they get home and you got to snatch them away from it to do work, If our children are already always on the game system, you got to snatch them away from it in order to do their homework. And 9 times out of 10, they probably still ain't doing their homework. They ain't doing no chores because they sitting in front of that computer.
Right.
How many times of a day do you think they don't switched over from class to what they really want to do on that computer?
Yeah.
Like, I can't pay attention online when it's
Yeah.
when we in class online. You telling me to do this, you telling me to do a homework assignment. It's not like I'm in class anyways. So I'm being taught in front of a computer, and I got to sit there and I got to look at this computer all day, and that is boring.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
our parents, you got them young parents nowadays, and I'm not putting none of y'all down because I had my first when I was 17, but I had a whole lot of wisdom though. I became a mama at an early age, but I had a whole lot of wisdom because I kind of like did it on my own for a long time. So I had to be grown
Right.
because I needed to raise them babies.
Right.
But when it comes to that, that's just like the voting issues. How do you how can you assist these children in wanting to vote, the ones that can vote, the ones that can sign up to vote, to get to these polls, to want to be involved in community work and engagement, and to want to be involved in the community work? If the first thing they can't stand about it is being virtual online in class to learn something. Their mind is all over the place.
Right.
And instead of us coming in, teaching them with our wisdom, we coming in and we saying that we ain't got time. You know, I work 2 and 3 jobs. That's why they got you on online schools. You need to be in class and this and that. That handicaps our children. Not that they already ain't handicapped anyways, but that handicaps our children. Because a lot of our children have to be on these computers and didn't even never know how to use a computer.
It's true. It's true. No,
So
this
wisdom teaches us a whole lot.
yeah, it is drastic with our kids with this pandemic and education. And like you say, we were already behind, just based on the system itself. And to have this happen, and like you say, the deficiencies, and again, it's all systemic because you have deficiencies and disparities in access to the internet,
Mm-hmm.
access to computers. I know the schools tried to ramp up and give computers and all that, but again, not having access to the internet uh, because of cost. I mean, yeah, Comcast and AT&T offer low cost plans, but if you have 3 or 4 kids online at one time, that's not going to work.
And
I know
that
my
uses up all the data.
yeah, right, because my daughter's paying what $50, $75 or whatever just for internet because of her kids. Because I asked, I said, "Why are you doing that? Why are you paying so much?" She said, "Because I need the bandwidth and I need the speed because I got more than one kid online, plus everybody else." You know, so those disparities, and then even with parents not being prepared to help, even if
To
they
assist,
want to,
right?
you know. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, just even when mine was in school, I mean, especially when it came to math, okay, please don't talk to me, please don't ask me because I can't help you. You know, so you have those disparities and deficiencies. I was watching something the other day where, you know, no, when this first started, and I put it out there without thinking when I put it out there about these pods where parents could get together, you know, come as a group and hire teachers to teach. And my brain didn't even think about the fact that no, that's a cost that most people cannot bear because teachers need to eat and you can't afford to pay them what they need in order to do this. But you had parents doing it. Of
Hmm.
course, white parents, upper middle class parents, who even themselves said they felt guilty being able to do it, knowing other people couldn't. Again, we've been put behind again, and I don't know how to fix that situation. I mean that is it is what it is. I hate to say it like that, and I don't know how will we catch up. That's one more setback. I don't know how we catch up. I don't know how we catch up because this is going to be a mess.
But it's
It's
like you said, it's in our community. We have the resources to do so.
But that is true.
We know teachers got to get paid. So if we'll listen sometimes to what our elders are saying, if we'll listen to what what they speaking. We got enough money in our black communities to keep that money in our black communities. It could pay teachers to hold um, one big class in an auditorium for pre-K, then first, and fifth, and so forth. If we got it, I mean, in Georgia and some of these countries, all the children go to school and be in the same class most of the time for all the grades.
Yeah, that's true in some cases. Yeah.
And we know we want to get away from that because every child is on a different level.
Right.
But where we at right now?
Yeah.
What do we have right now to procreate something like that and implement that give some leeway to not just the children in the community, but the parents, these single parents or these parents that don't have it. Way back when, the reason why we get like my mom's generation, you know, I ain't gonna say my mom's age, but she was born in the 50s. But and my dad was born in the 50s. So they didn't necessarily. My mom got education, but my dad didn't, and my mom didn't. She went back after a while. But like my dad, he didn't finish. So asking him a question about school today was a non-factor because he couldn't help me.
Right.
But they knew who to take us to that who could help us.
True.
And they wanted to know what we were learning. And then even with our history, that's why so much defects in voting right now. And those I don't want to vote and stuff like that because yeah, our ancestors paved the way so that we as black men and women can vote. They did. But get this. When it comes to voting, our parents our parents was back in history, but they really didn't teach it to us.
True.
Like my parents didn't sit down and teach me history and black history.
Yeah.
They didn't tell me specifically about Martin Luther King, or they didn't tell me specifically about Malcolm X and Sojourner Truth and all that. Growing up, I started to learning that on my own because I felt like I don't think just because there's a whole lot of white American history here, that's how things was. Where the black folks at?
Right.
Now you teaching all this white American history in school, but you're not teaching the black history in school. Thank God they got those systems going now, but they didn't have them when we were in school. Probably, and I know they didn't have them when you was in school.
But listen, this is the thing, and and I told my cousin this years ago. We grew up uniquely different. Now I'm from Central Florida, Marion County.
Okay.
Outside of Ocala is the city, but there's a little town outside called Zuber, which is where I grew up.
Uh-huh.
And I was born in the 50s. In fact, I was born in 1954. Zuber was 100% black. Let me clarify. 99.9, because I think there might have been one white family, but there was never any interaction. So but all black, all landowners. My grandfather was a major employer. He had an 800-acre farm. My first husband's father was a big farmer, and I had an uncle. So three major that, there were others, but they were major. 100% black. The school I went to was 100% black from kindergarten to 12th grade. Now, I didn't graduate from there because of integration, but this was during segregation when I was growing up. Any drastic or detrimental effects of white people was never discussed in the community or in my household or whatever. Now, my daddy was not a farmer, but, we owned land. No white man was allowed on our land, period. It wasn't a big deal about it. It just was said, and that was the way it was. And I never saw him. So the effects of racism directly to me didn't happen. I knew about it simply because, and again, between my mom and my dad, I will say we got an education more so from my mom, because she would talk about things, and then she was active in the civil rights movement with her father, and me, my little 8-year-old self, toddling with them, doing marches and rallies and whatever, back in the 60s. So my perspective was totally different. I was never told, and nobody that I know of was ever told you could not achieve because you're black or female. That was never, ever, ever said. So when I left home and went to college, And even when I went into the work world years later, my perspective was always from, in the work world, I'm a professional who happens to be black and who happens to be a woman. I never led with black and female. I'm a professional. But going to college and never understood and didn't know until I got to college that black people didn't own land. Because that was my only, I figured every black person in America owned land. That's what I thought until I found out differently. And then my eyes started being open to these ramifications. But like you said, my parents taught us about, well, I can't say they taught us about racism per se. They just taught you about being black, period. And we encountered some effects of racism because I know we got out of the car one day walking in the store, passed the car with some little white kids, and they hollered at the one nigga, and my mom was like, "Well, your mama's a nigga," and kept it moving. And I was like, "Oh, okay, what was that?" But it was that kind of stuff. And then when I was little, she worked for a white family, doing what black women did, taking care of their children, cleaning and washing and whatever. And then what happened when I went to before was it when I went to college? When in high school, she started working at the school. She ended up like your mom, went back and got her degree. And when I went to college, she went to college, and she ended up teaching at the women's prison in Lowell, teaching diet and nutrition. But those are the things that I had as examples growing up. And then my father had traveled some in the military, so it was a different understanding of segregation and racism.
Right.
Never, okay, I heard this code switching. I was like, what is code switching? And then, it's just speaking, this your language, how you speak. So when you're with white folks, and that is a recurrent theme in our community. But my mom, again, growing up where we grew up, we weren't allowed to speak with a real Southern dialect. With certain words, she said, you can't say, not that she looked down on anybody, but she said, if you ever leave home, nobody will understand you.
Right.
Now, I've seen that bear out because I worked at DOT, and it was a Jamaican lady, and she worked with these two men from North Florida, black guys. And she called me up one day, and she says, my name was Dolores at the time. She said, Dolores, Ira and Freddie just said something to me, and I have no idea what they said. So I said, well, what did they say? He said, he fixing go. And I just started laughing, but she had no idea what he said, what he meant, none of that. And I said, that's why I explained to her, no, he's telling me he's about to leave or whatever. Then I was working with a Mexican dude, and again with DOT, we were doing a conference in Tampa. And it was a guy was from Mexico, and there was me, and then the little white boy from Bartow came and sat down. And he's talking. And when Ricky got him and left, Mario looked at me and he said, he seems like a nice guy. He said, but I didn't understand a word he said. Because he spoke in a Southern dialect. And so these are the things that we were taught, how you operate in the world. But it was never said because we were black.
Right.
It's just that this is the way you have to carry yourself in the world. So code switching. When I first heard that, I'm like, what are you saying? Because I taught my kids, I said, like one lady was bragging about a lady from Haiti. Oh, they speak all these languages. And I said, well, I'm bilingual. She said, well, what do you mean? What do you speak? I said, I speak this and I speak that. Because, that kind of thing. So it's just funny that, I'm really glad and honored and privileged and grateful that I grew up in the community I did with not that pressure and stress of overt racism. And I always wonder about my community because it was a thriving black community. And no man ever, I'm telling you, never set foot. And right up the road, Rosewood was burned to the ground. They didn't touch us. We did. I'm good. I would love to trace my history and find out what was, first off, how they acquired all this land. That's number one I need to know. Now, I do know that my people came out of South Carolina as slaves. The slave master actually brought them to Florida. Even my in-laws, it was my in-laws, my mom's side of the family, and my dad came out of Carolina to escape the Civil War. But how they amassed all this land is a mystery to me. 800 acres, a black man, because a black man couldn't buy land. So how did my grandfather amass 800 acres of land and become a major farmer in Florida? And so it's just an amazing thing. But that was my upbringing, and not knowing that there was a different upbringing with black people. that who were persecuted, if you will, or subjugated to living on the white man's land and having to bow down to him. And I'm just so grateful that I did not have that experience. So it's different. And so I think it colored kind of the way I handle myself in the world and how I operate in the world, because I never had any boundaries put on me that of what I couldn't do, any limitations that, well, you're black, you can't do this. If you're a woman, you can't do this. That was never, ever said to me, ever, 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 ever said to me. And so I went out in the world like I can do what I want to do.
You speaking to me right now.
And listen, I worked with DOT. Every job I've had since I was 19, I was either the only black person or one of two or three, well into my 40s. I never considered it that way until years later. It was like, it's a job, you go get a job, you go to work, and that's the end of it. But I was working for DOT, and I'm a person, when I go to work, I go to work. You know what I mean? When I hit the door running, let's get it done. And I'm a person, I don't look. By 1 o'clock in the day, my work is done. I'm done. Because I know how to organize myself. I know how to get stuff done. And all of a sudden, I noticed that, and I was the supervisor over a few departments and this and that. And then we have these meetings. So I go into the meeting and I sit down. I'm the meeting. Oh, okay. But it never occurred to me until this year that some of the challenges, it wasn't even a challenge to me, because my thing was this, and my mom taught me this: when you do something, do it right, and do it right the first time. So when I do a job, trust me, if my name is on it, it's right, and it's right the first time. So I never had any words about my work and the quality of my work. But I look back on it now and I said, them white folks thought I was absolutely insane, because what they couldn't figure out is, well, she's black. She doesn't act like she's black. And now because I had somebody, two things happen. One was a state deputy with the DOT, asked another co-worker, how does Dolores do it? I said, do what? How does she do it? She has 3 kids. I was a single parent. She has 3 kids and she comes to work and she looks good and this, that. And I said, well, what? I said, you mean to tell me this woman who makes 3 times as much money as I am is sitting up in her bed at night worrying about how I live? And then a guy came in my office one day and said it to my face, asked me, how do you do it? I said, how do I do what? And he said, I said, well, what am I supposed to look like, a church mouse? Never once did it occur to me that it was because I was a black woman. Never once until this year. I'm like, these people, look, because my thing was this: I told the dude in Tallahassee, and he was racist, and I called him out on it and walked off. And he came back and he was like, you really think I'm a racist? And I'm like, but that's your issue. It's not mine.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a racist, that's your issue. It's not mine. And it will not bother me. If you act ignorant, I will deal with you as such, but I'm not going to, trust me, it won't weigh on me.
Right.
It will not weigh on me. And that's what I want to tell a lot of young people in their careers. Don't let somebody else's behavior weigh on you. Don't let somebody else's issue become yours. It is theirs and theirs alone.
That's right.
You address it when you need to address it and move on. I refuse to carry people. I will not carry you or your burden. If you want to be ignorant, you'll be ignorant by yourself. I will not entertain the conversation with you. And in fact, one of the chicks I worked with when I went to the consultant, and I don't know what her issue, I guess that was her issue, that I was a black female, or whatever her issue was, because at the time I didn't even care. And I just told her, because she would nitpick little things, and they had a problem with the boss. The president of the company hired me. He had no issues with the way, okay, I'll be honest with you. I won't recommend this to everybody, but I did do this. The office opened up at 8. I would show up at 9. But like I say, when I hit the door, I'm working. Right. So the president of the company didn't have a problem, because he knew whenever he stepped foot and dealt with a client, he never had to be embarrassed, because when I gave him stuff, it was done. And she's, was kind of like digging at me about that. I just really wish, people around here say they wish they could get away with what you get away with. I said, exactly what is it that I'm getting away with? Well, can you promise me that you can give me 40 hours a week? Because I can give you 40 hours worth of work. Now, which one you want? I said, because I can come in here at 8 o'clock and leave at 4 and do nothing, and you got 40 hours. Or I can come here when I come here and give you 40 hours worth of work. Now you decide what you want, and that's what it'll be. And I had to tell her one day when she started, I said, look, that conversation we're not having again. If you're not talking to me about my work, the quality of my work, we're not having a conversation. Period. You will not question me about anything. Period. And I take that over to any area of your life, and that's the piece of advice I will give to anybody. If somebody is at you, but not about what your substance is, that is not a conversation to have. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your energy. You don't have to defend it. Let them be. And you tell them, that conversation, I'm not having. And she came back again, and I said, didn't I say we're not having that conversation? I mean, we're not having that conversation. And don't carry people. You don't have to impress anybody. I was shocked when I heard some young people say they go to work and feel like they need to achieve more simply because they're Black. No, do what you do. Period. You don't have to achieve more. You do quality from the beginning to the end, and that's it. What more can you do? What more can you do? What are you trying to prove and to who? Do what you do. Now, either you are good at what you do or you're not. And that's it. That's the only metric you have. And you have to decide that for yourself. What is your metric of excellence? That's yours. Whatever your standard is, that's the way it is. And anybody who challenges that, then okay, that's their issue again. And you may have to move on.
Yeah, I like metric of excellence. I like that. Listen, straight transparency don't be nothing but like 30 minutes. But no, wait a minute. Sometimes we get away, but you captured me when you went into your history because you never shared that with me. So you see, I'm sitting over here smiling big, and
right.
my bishop say Black folk never get their 40 acres and a mule. I'm just saying.
My father got his. I don't know if he got it. He got his plus some, and I don't know how he got it. And this man lived to be 101. I remember marching with him in the civil rights movement. Now, this man was 71 when I was born. And 8 years later, he is marching in the civil rights movement, he and my mom, sitting in rallies in churches. And he didn't say a whole lot. He didn't talk a whole lot. But one thing I loved about my grandfather, he never talked about the past. Never. He was always present and future, always. Before we get off, I know we're going to get off, I want to leave this with anybody who's struggling with their next move. In that book, June Jordan's book, she had a quote from a woman named Ellie Gross, who was a Jewish activist, and her family had been killed in the Holocaust. And for years that weighed on her until it came to her, and it was like a spiritual message that she said, I guess my destiny was to live. And that really struck home with me. Because people die around you all the time. And you're left standing. And sometimes you ask yourself, why? Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? And that phrase, I guess my destiny was to live, means that in honor of those people's lives, I must live and give back what was given to me. And so I leave that with anybody who's, because I've struggled with moving forward, or putting stuff into place because, whatever the conversation I was having with myself, you struggle. But that really hit me because I had some people who experienced some tragedies, some people close to me experienced some tragedies that were like this. Talk to the person, a person they loved on Sunday, and on Monday they were dead. And it's like, now what? An opportunity given up for happiness. That's another thing. Happiness is, joy stays with you because joy comes from the Lord. It stays in your heart. It stays in your spirit. Happiness is a choice, whether it be a person, place, thing, choice. But it's fleeting. And if it comes today, you can't say, oh, I'll get with you tomorrow, because it might not be there. those in the 1 week, a couple things happened that made me reevaluate me making excuses about why I haven't done what I'm supposed to do. You know, there's timing, but I'll bear responsibility to that. I just nah, you know, whatever, whenever I, you know, when, you know, we like to say, well, when this happens, I'll do that. No, that's not the way it works. You either do it or you don't. And I'm done talking.
So listen, straight transparency was, hey, listen, that was good tonight. I really love this session because if y'all was listening, she really downloaded into us a lot of important information and a lot of pertinent information for our youngsters. Um, First of all, youngsters, let's make sure that we're not out there straight up disrespecting our elders. Know the difference between being an adult and a grown up.
Right.
An adult and a grown up, and she stated, root word of grown is grow. That means you don't went through some things, you know some things, and you know how to get through some things because you grown. But when you're an adult, the law states that you're an adult because of your age. Doesn't necessarily mean you're an adult. Or like her daughter says, she's a chidult. But then she also gave some some great Black history in her own family that I didn't even know existed. That this is what you call wisdom. This is what you call wisdom. When we sit around people, and I often tell folks, I got a lot of they say I got a lot of wisdom because I sat around the folks at the tree, up under the tree with the dominoes and the cars and little Peach looking like your daddy pie. Go get me a beer out the stove. Go get me a beer out the stove. Well, Pop ain't gonna let me get no beer. They'll let you get it. Tell him Pop out here want the beer. Okay, I'm gonna go get the beer. Wisdom,
Right.
knowing the difference between right and wrong, knowing what to do and what not to do, what to say and what not to say, where to go and where not to go at the right time. If you sit down and you listen to these elders, or might I say seniors, or might I say my wisdom, you'll learn something. You'll learn that the reason why we have such gaps between intergenerational social issues is because children are not being taught from one generation to the next. Where did we go wrong as a people? What are we going to do as a people to straighten this out? What I would say to us, get your houses in order. If we can't fight what's going on in this world right now, we can't. Because to them, we don't have no say. We are nobodies. Although we do lift up our voices, although we do rally, although we protest, although we go out there and we riot, we do lift up our voices. But I learned a long time ago, you can't clean up nobody else's house if yours still dirty.
It's true.
Make sure, as Black folks in today's world, we cleaning up ourselves. We're making sure we stand on the right track because we know who God is. We know that He's always in control. We know that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and everything in it, everything, including the white man, belongs to Him.
Right.
So when we know that, we can move throughout this land on His word because it's the only thing that's going to stand when all this is over.
It
His
is.
word.
It is.
So for the last thought, I'm going to let Sydney close us out with her last statement on the voting social issues that need to be corrected, or might I say, amplified.
Voting issues that need to be amplified? Is that what you're asking?
Right. Well, from voting and social issues
Right.
surrounded. So it's issues surrounded around voting.
Well, the
I don't
whole
know why I
voting
get tongue
thing,
tied at the end.
I've written a piece about this before. At this point, there's nothing else that can be said about who, you know, for the people who say they're not going to vote or going to vote whatever. There's not a whole lot you can say. The only thing I can, because at this point, the die is cast. It's done. I mean, for all intents and purposes, this election is over. You know, I know we got a few days or whatever, but people have done what they're going to do and not done what they're not going to do. And that's done. The question is, what are we going to do on November 4th? See, that's the question. Okay. my youngest daughter and I sit here and we talk about this constantly because I mean she's really, I mean, I'm almost to the point where I don't want to watch the election because God forbid he gets elected again. But the question again is, what are you going to do on November 4th? And I don't know if anybody has any answers.
Mhm.
Is that Biden would win, which would begin the healing of the country. Now, it's going to take a minute. It's going to be a long, long road, but it will begin the healing. Now, admittedly, I will say Trump was necessary to bring all the craziness to light that we as Black people already knew was here. And other folks was like, it's not that bad, and we've come this far and this and that. So I don't know if that turmoil is actually over or it's just the beginning of taking the scab off. And the sore, the abscess is just deep, deep, deep. And it's going to take forever. I don't know. But we've got to heal some kind of way. We've got to, as a country, as a whole. We've got to heal as a community. And I don't know. I know like 4 years ago when Mike Brown, it was 4 years ago, I guess it was, Mike Brown was killed. And I was meditating and I heard this, God said, I hear your cries. And he's talking about Black people. I hear your cries. Don't despair, because my justice is coming. He said, don't despair in the face of unimaginable injustice. And I heard, I said, Lord have mercy, what is going to happen now? What's going on now? Immediately I thought about my family. But then as I got to understand, no, he was talking about my people, Black folks. Unimaginable injustice. And if we haven't faced that over the last 5-6 years, I don't know who hasn't.
Amen.
Or who has, rather. And the pain is so deep. I don't know where that ends, but I know it's going to end and we will be victorious.
Amen.
Wish I had a bullet point solution sheet list. I could go down and say, if you do A, B will happen, and C, then I don't have that. This is something on a spiritual level that God will have to take care of. That's the only answer I have. You know, we have to do what we need to do, being responsible and accountable and using the tools that we have available to us. But to me, the responsibility comes right back to our feet as a people. We've got to figure out how to love each other enough to hate the sin. The sin of what's been done to us. We've got to find a way to love us enough to hate the sin that was done to us. Jesus.
And that's all I can.
Oh man, that hit my spirit.
Listen, that's powerful.
Oh my
That's
God.
powerful. Love us enough
to
hate the sin
right
that's done unto us.
That's it. That's it.
I like that.
And
I hope y'all take that. I hope y'all take that nugget with y'all. This has been another transparent session. Friday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, with Sydney London, back down in Fort Lauderdale. Renaissance woman, a woman who knows not everything, but many things. Y'all tune in next week, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern. I have another special guest. Might surprise some of y'all, but it's another powerful woman of God, and she's gonna be breaking some stuff down as well. I'm telling y'all, I'm doing straight transparency because that's where I stay at.
Yeah.
I stay with just saying it the way it need to be said. I know the Bible, and I know what I can and I can't do, and I won't even embarrass my leaders. I won't. But I like to keep it transparent because sometimes layman's terms need to come out. Sometimes you need to just understand how grandma said it. Sat down.
Right.
I don't need to go. I don't need to tell you nothing else. So we'll see y'all next week. Sydney, I thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Hey, listen, this was a powerful session. Queen Lady of Wisdom, Renaissance woman, you broke it down and I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. Blessings.
Tuning out, y'all.
Ciao.
Peace.
All right.